Hey, welcome back. Breezing along through hour two. I want to thank Darren Cox and the team at Adam Weiss PR for getting Darren down here to tell us everything that's going on in the esports and gaming space. It's certainly a growing phenomena. But joining us now via Skype, it's Tom Basile. He is a conservative author. He's a Newsmax contributor. And Tom, we really want you here in studio, but thanks for joining us by Skype today.
It's great to be with you, John and Frank.
So, Tom, there's a lot of crazy things going on out there in the universe. Yesterday, Trump had said that he wants to have the next G7 meeting at his place down in Miami, Trump Doral. And now we hear about Obama's new initiative for this youth summit. And lo and behold, they're holding it in Chicago, Obama's hometown. What do you think about Obama's initiatives now, redistricting, youth summits? Why is he coming out now?
Well, look, he's trying to influence next year's election, and the redistricting issue and the redistricting effort that Eric Holder actually started at Obama's behest right after Obama left office is the one that really conservatives and freedom-minded people in this country should be concerned about. This is an effort that's a couple of years old, and it just shows you how Democrats in the far left really play the long game. They are looking at this redistricting process, which is controlled by state legislatures all over the country to try and move the country to the left. It's not about just the congressional elections. It's not about the presidential. They are going to take a very bottom-up process to how you redraw the lines to ensure that liberal Democrats get back control of Congress and they control it for a generation. And Holder's raised about $30 million for this effort. Obama's now getting into the act. We can expect that tens of millions of dollars will be raised for that effort now going forward. And hey, look, if you've got legislative chambers in different states and swing states where you only have a 1 or 2 seat majority and you're the Republicans, that's a lot of money that can be dumped in by this national Democratic Party or left-wing group to try and influence an election, to flip a chamber, and to get control of congressional redistricting come 2021.
So, Tom, thanks again for coming on. And, you know, I'm a big fan of your work, and there are very few people that are as expert in both policy and communicating about policy as you are. You had a fascinating story, a fascinating column on Newsmax.com about the president being under siege when it comes to getting involved in all these little tiffs with people like the Mooch, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, people like Chris Cuomo. And you write that China and Russia are having a field day while the president gets bogged down with all these trivial matters. Isn't that selling some of the foreign policy successes that this administration has had a little bit short? We've seen the summit with North Korea. We've seen a great trade deal with Japan. We've seen more NATO countries paying their fair share. Doesn't it show that at least some of what the president is doing is working?
Oh, absolutely. You know, certainly it does. But at the same time, now that we're going into this election in 2020, our enemies, our geopolitical adversaries are looking at this campaign. They are following what's going on. And one of the things that the mainstream press and the far left either don't care about or don't appreciate, that when they have this kind of total everyday onslaught against the president, what does it do? It makes the president appear like he's under siege, and our geopolitical adversaries take advantage of that. Russia is a prime example. Russia is a country that their cognitive and asymmetrical warfare has gotten worse. They are in bed with all the people that we don't like. And here we have the president saying that they should be invited back into the G7 when they're not even a top 10. Not even a top 10 economy. So we have the rise of ISIS again. We're seeing Secretary Pompeo having to go out after a very damaging Pentagon report on the status of ISIS, saying, no, look, we are seeing a resurgence in certain areas, and we're going to be working to try and interdict a surge there. My point in the article is that the president obviously has had some foreign policy successes. He obviously needs to focus on how we continue to build this historic economy. but he cannot be sidetracked by sideshows like the Mooch or Fredo or AOC. He does have to continue to articulate a coherent foreign policy. And right now that needs to go beyond just the trade deal with China, which is obviously very important.
I want to play for you the president yesterday talking at the G7 in France, talking about what Egypt would do if they were offered $1 billion. Here's President Trump yesterday.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've spent, and I think I will, in a combination of loss and opportunity. Probably it'll cost me anywhere from $3 to $5 billion to be president. And the only thing I care about is this country. Couldn't care less. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. People have asked me, what do you think it costs? And between opportunity, not doing things, I used to get a lot of money to make speeches. Now I give speeches all the time. You know what I get? Zippo, and that's good. And I did a lot of great jobs and great deals that I don't do anymore. And I don't want to do them because the deals I'm making are great deals for the country. And that's, to me, much more important.
Well, that was actually the president responding to the assertion that hosting the G7 next year at one of his properties would enrich him. So let me ask you about that. Are you on board with hosting the G7 next year at Trump Doral?
Feeds his opponents and other folks who say that that he's enriching himself as being president. Look, you and I and most people know that's nonsense. But at the same time, why hand your opposition a talking point and something that is a media circus that is going to just drive their point when it's totally unnecessary. It's great for the president that we are hosting it here next year. I think that gives him a tremendous opportunity to show his ability to lead on the world stage. But instead of him talking about himself, which he shouldn't be talking about, he should be articulating to the American people why what he is doing with respect to China and tariffs is so very important. I would love to see, John and Frank, I would love to see this president really explain to the American people why it is so critical that after years of being taken advantage of and the damage that has caused to the economy and the damage that has caused to the American consumer, why it's important that he is standing up to China. And I think we need an Oval Office address on this because the Democrats are going to say, hey, look, this whole China thing is one of the reasons why we're going to be driving toward a recession. The American people don't want to hear about Trump. They want to hear Trump explain what he is doing and have a clearly articulated policy. And I think that has unfortunately that's been a continuing challenge for this administration.
My final question, Tom, and the armchair diplomat rather than the guy that's hanging out with the Pope and advising presidents as you've been from time to time. But my final question has to do with an article you wrote for some other website, foxnews.com or something, in which you say there's one big lesson that the president needs to learn for 2020. What is that lesson?
I think he needs to get personal. I think he needs to develop a personal narrative. And what we're seeing in these polls across the country, particularly in swing states, particularly with women and suburban voters and college-educated voters, many of whom voted for him last time, is that there is a degree of Trump fatigue that has been developed by the mainstream press, that he has a likability problem. And in order for Trump to try and reach out to those voters, the bravado is great for the base, but he's got to be able to change up his tone. And I think that developing a personal narrative is something that's very important. We have less of a personal narrative with respect to Trump than we have had with our other presidents. And I thought that when he was talking about his brother to the Washington Post a couple of weeks ago, I thought that was wonderful. I thought that really humanized him. I don't think he lost anything. I don't think he looked weak at all. And I think that people started to get to know a little bit more about him as Trump the man rather than just Trump the fighter. I think both are necessary to put a voter coalition together, and I would love to see him do that.
Well, I want to, Tom, thank you for those unbelievable observations. And I want to thank Tom Basile for joining us today. Hopefully next time we'll have him here in studio. But, I've said it many times. Frankie said it. Trump kind of steps on his message sometimes by tweeting stuff out, which the form stinks, but the substance is good. Substance is going to be even better when we come back with Scott Lebedo, patriotic artist, right after this.